恭请大德善听，为此法会急切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死。离苦得乐，殊真无生。Well, the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attempt bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmyao sanputo 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, ending 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 life, Medicine Master Buddha. Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha, welcome back. This is lecture number 132. Sorry, excuse me. Of our series. Okay, so let me get today's slides up. Anyone has any questions? You know what to do. Unmute your microphone, tap it into the chat box. One of the things I announced earlier was that one of my projects that I'm working on is to develop a series of lectures on the topic of death and dying in Buddhism, based on all the different sutras and shastras from both the Pali Canon and Mahayana sutras. as well as commentaries. So what would be very helpful is if anyone has any questions or anything you want to know about the topic, if you could send it to me, that gives me an idea. If you want to ask for today as well, that's totally fine. Okay. All right. So where are we today? We are on the topic of mindfulness, of renunciation or generosity. And last week, we explored the topic of okay, let me show you the slide. So last week, if you look at your screen, it says in regard to the recollection of generosity, there are two kinds of abandonment. Abandonment means it's not, there was a question about renunciation or abandonment, and it's almost like it feels like you are giving up something. It's like you're, excuse me. Oh, hold on, let me drink some water. The word has a overtones of sacrificing or denying something that you want, but you deny yourself. Like the word ascetic, but it's not. Renunciation comes from understanding something and either seeing that is beneficial to you in giving it away, or that it is harmful for you in keeping it. And through wisdom, through understanding, through wisdom, you naturally, it's you are not attached to it. The item or the object naturally does not have a hold on you anymore. It does not affect how you feel in terms of happiness. So when you give it away, it's no longer a sacrifice. You just don't need it anymore. So that's the meaning of renunciation here. Okay. So last week we talked about the abandonment consisting of generosity of material gifts, and then today we are going to go to B, which is a gift of Dharma. Okay, and then in a future lecture we will touch on giving away our afflictions or disturbing emotions. Yes, Choi Chi, you have a question? Oh, okay, then I'm going to mute you if you don't mind. If you want to ask, you can unmute yourself again. Okay. All right, moving on. Says, how is generosity of the Dharma recollected? That means, how do you practice this generosity of Dharma? Says the practitioner has the following thought, meaning all of us. Says the benefits of generosity of the Dharma are very great. It is because of generosity of the Dharma that all the disciples of the Buddha have found the path. Okay. And then going on, it says, moreover, the Buddha said of the two kinds of generosity of the Dharma is foremost. So this is comparing giving the Dharma compared to the giving of material wealth. That means something that has a physical aspect to it. It says why? It says the retribution for material generosity is limited, whereas the retribution of generosity of the Dharma is immense. Material generosity is rewarded in the desire realm, whereas generosity of the Dharma is rewarded in the threefold world and also beyond the threefold world. Okay, so you could say there's a physical, excuse me, there's kind of like a almost physical limitation to the act of material generosity. Okay. Says if the practitioner does not seek glory, profit, or power, if he exerts himself solely in the path of the Buddhas and develops great loving kindness and great compassion, if it saves beings from the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death, then this is pure generosity of the Dharma. Otherwise, it is only a business deal or a barter. That means you're doing something to get something else in return. So who can do this? Who can not seek glory, profit, or power, and with great loving kindness and great compassion while walking the path of the Buddhas, share the Dharma? Well, only Bodhisattvas can do this, only if your mind is pure. So this is known as pure generosity of the Dharma. This is the, how you say, it would be considered a perfection of giving if so it is the giving of the Bodhisattvas. Only they are able to do this. Okay. Oh, sorry, excuse me. And it says, moreover, when material generosity is practiced widely, wealth is exhausted. On the other hand, when generosity of the Dharma is practiced widely, the Dharma grows. So sometimes they say that when you share the Dharma, it is like sharing light. So there's this example where you have a candle and your candle is lighted, and you go around lighting the candles of those around you. So what happens is the light increases, but it does not diminish the light of your own candle. So that's one way of understanding how generosity of the Dharma, the more you share Dharma, the more the Dharma grows. There's no limitation. Whereas material generosity, there's a limit there. As you give, you have less and less to give. So material generosity remedies only hunger and thirst, sicknesses of cold, heat, etc. Generosity of the Dharma can drive away the sicknesses of the 98 defilements. For all these reasons, a distinction is made between material generosity and generosity of the Dharma. Says in order, there's something I wanted to say. For today, the topic is not so much in the specifics, like in the details, but it's more the feeling that you get at the end of it. So although it's easy to understand, but if you don't understand certain sections or certain parts, it's fine. Because what you want to get from this whole idea of generosity is, like I said, more of a feeling. Because when you give, you don't give with your mind. You don't. Sometimes you do, but usually giving is giving with a feeling behind it, emotion, and impulse. So today's topic is more of getting an overall feel for it, rather than having to understand the minute points of what we are going through. I'm sharing with you all this because these are great commentaries and from the Shastras and from the Sutras. But in terms of understanding, it's more developing an overall view. Okay, so it says, in order for it to be true generosity of the Dharma, it is necessary to teach everyone with a pure mind and good intention. So this is the goal, the ultimate goal. Just as the material gift is not meritorious if it is not inspired by a good mind, so also the gift of the Dharma is not generosity of the Dharma without a pure mind and good intention. So when you want to share the Dharma or you want to benefit people, you have to make sure that at least your intention is good. Okay. Generosity of the Dharma praises the three jewels, opens the three jewels are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. It says opens the door of sin and merit. Opens the door of sin and merit here. I think what it does, it means is it makes you understand what are wholesome and unwholesome actions. So it gives you wisdom. It teaches the Four Noble Truths. It converts beings and introduces them to the Buddhist path. This preaching or teaching constitutes the authentic generosity of the Dharma. And then it says, generosity of the Dharma Oh, excuse me. I need to drink more water. Okay. Generosity of the Dharma is the teaching of others the 12 classes of texts preached by the Buddha with a pure mind and in view of merit. Okay, so previous slide, let me go back. Let me show this to you. If you look at, okay, the last two words of the top paragraph says good intention, all right, or right intention. What is that? Okay, if you look at the text in italics, what is right intention? Right intention is renunciation. That means you give. Renunciation means doing things to have less desire and less attachments, but not in a, like I said, not in a forceful way, in a way that is natural because of understanding and wisdom. Okay, so that's renunciation. The second one is goodwill. So anything that you do, if you want to have right intention, you have to have goodwill in your heart. Goodwill means to benefit other people. And then number three is harmlessness. It's more or less the same, but it's different as well. Yeah. So renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness is for the good of other people. Okay. So it says, furthermore, generosity of the Dharma is also using magical power so that people may find the path. Okay, this is not, if you have spiritual abilities, this is not using spiritual abilities to for people to say, oh, this person can do wonderful things, we must listen to this person. It's not that at all. It is how it is, let me see, it is using what you have to help people. Okay, so to understand this, think of it this way. For someone who wants to generate blessings, say they want to be reborn in the heavens, or they want to create merit, they want to generate blessings but have right intention. So you create merit based on that. For them, when they see people who are very rich, okay, then to them, being very rich is a spiritual ability. Why? Because these people with a lot of money can do a lot of things that they cannot. So it's just that. It's just a difference between being able to do things and not being able to do things. Okay. So if you want to practice generosity, you see other people and they are very, they're not selfish at all. They don't have an ounce of selfishness. That can be considered a superpower. Then when it comes to actual superpowers, okay, like Guan Yin has tremendous spiritual abilities. She has the metaphor of 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes, right? So Guan Yin developed the spiritual abilities in order to help people. It's not to overawe people by spiritual powers so they think that you're great and they listen to you. No, it's not that at all. The Buddha actually said that doesn't work. Buddha says you want to, if you want to teach people for their benefit, don't do it through spiritual abilities. Do it through understanding the Dharma. Do it through teaching the Dharma. So Guan Yin uses her spiritual abilities in so many different ways, but people are not even aware that Guan Yin is doing that. Okay, so that's what this means. All right. Okay. Now, if you look at the first paragraph, it says the 12 classes of texts. What does that mean? Okay, that the sutras or the teachings of the Buddha have been classified in different texts in different ways or differently in different texts. For example, the most common one is classifying the teachings of the Buddha into the sutras and then into the Vinaya. Vinaya are the precepts or the rules of discipline. And then the Abhidhamma. These three categories. Abhidhamma is how you could say is like Buddhist psychology, the Theravada side of Buddhist psychology. In Mahayana, it will be called Yogacara. So that's one way of classifying the teachings of the Buddha. Then there's another way that has 9 or 12 categories. So what are the categories? For example, They are known as the Jatakas. The Jatakas are stories that the Buddha told about his own past lives, for example. Sutras are included as one of the categories. And then verses are one category. Fables, or they start with "thus it was said." And usually it is about the past lives of the Buddha's disciples. And then there's a category called marvelous events. What are marvelous events? Well, there's a story. Actually, it's an actual happening. The Buddha was walking with the monks, and there was a wildfire. And the monks were getting a bit apprehensive because the fire was approaching them from all sides. And then the Buddha just stopped walking, and he just stood there. And then the monks asked the Buddha and said, "Why have you stopped walking? Shouldn't we be walking away from the fire?" And then the Buddha said, "No, the fire will not reach us at this very spot." So true enough, the fire did not burn around them. The fire was coming from different sides, but it did not approach the Buddha and the disciples. And it wasn't because the Buddha was standing there. And it wasn't because of wind, because wind blows in one direction, but if the fire is coming from different directions, then wind will not really help. Then the Buddha explained, and I'm not sure if I have my facts right, but it kind of goes like this. The Buddha said, a long time ago, he was a bird, and a small bird, and there was a fire at this very spot. So what he did was he flew to water, immersed himself in water, and then he came back to the spot and used the water that was saturated in his feathers to try to extinguish the fire. That's all I know, or all I remember about the story. But because of the heroic act of the Bodhisattva, that means before he became the Buddha as a bird, I'm not sure if the Devas or the spiritual beings protected that place, but something happened, and it is said that from then on until now, fire will not touch that spot. So the Buddha remembered. So that's why the Buddha did not try to escape from the fire. He knew that that spot will be untouched by the fire. So that's one category called marvelous events. I think falls into that category. So the total 12 categories of how they classify the Buddha's teachings. Okay. And then going on, it says, thus it is said in, and I'm not familiar with this particular sutra, it says the Wang Ming Po Sa Ching, or anyway, this sutra, it says, people who see the brilliance of the Buddha find the path and are reborn among the gods. Therefore, if without saying anything vocally, one brings others to find the Dharma, that is generosity of the Dharma. In this gift of the Dharma, the mental nature of beings, the greater or lesser number of their defilements, the sharpness or dullness of their wisdom must be taken into consideration. It is necessary to be based on what can be useful to them in order to preach or to teach or to share the Dharma to them. Okay, what is this? About not saying anything vocally. All of us can do that. Okay, all of us, and actually it's the right way for the Dharma to come across. Without saying anything, that means it's through your conduct. That is what moves people. That is what connects people. It's not what you know or what you say. It is what you do or how you behave or how you react. For example, I can be sitting here explaining everything I can find in the entire sutras and shastras about what patience is, right? But if you see me getting angry, then you say, oh, JinHe, sure, he can talk about patience, but he doesn't, in actual fact, he doesn't have any patience at all. So you probably won't come to me for patience. You may ask me to define patience, but you won't ask me how I can maintain patience, right? So I have a story actually about this. a story that moved me a lot. When I was a novice monk at CDTB, during our time, it was the only time when we had so many novices. At one time, we had 12 novice monks. So because we had so many, we had a okay, every time there's a novice monk, there's always a monk to take care of the novice or the novices, depending on how many there are. But because there were so many of us, we had organized classes as well, which was really good because we could learn a lot. One day, during a class, there's this particular monk who was in charge. We had different monks who were in charge of us. There was this particular monk who was in charge of us. And then suddenly the door opened and another monk came in and scolded the monk who was in charge of us. He was very, very unhappy. He scolded this monk because of something we didn't do right. The novice monks did not do it right. So when you have a monk in charge of novice monks, other monks can't scold us directly. There's a kind of like a protocol. They can't scold us directly, but they can go and complain or scold the monk who's in charge of us. So this happened. And as that was happening, in my mind, I was just running through the different ways that I would react. I would like explain back what's going on or to get angry in return. Actually, in my mind, I remember getting upset at the other monk who was shouting. But to my surprise, this monk who was being shouted at apologized, say, "Oh, I'm very sorry. Okay, I'll look into it and I will solve the problem. Thank you for letting me know." And I was very impressed. So that's what I mean. It's your conduct that determines how well your practice is going along. And it is your conduct that shows people if you are Buddhist or not. Okay. So when we hold the precepts, like sometimes people, when they start holding the precepts, they go home and then they say, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that because I'm holding the precepts." That's not the right way at all. But if you allow the precepts, if you understand the spirit of the precepts and you allow the precepts to transform your behavior, then eventually, and this has happened, if you live in a monastery and you see a lot of lay people over a period of years, you will find that this is true. Eventually, the family members, this is provided the person who's holding the precepts first does it in the proper way, in the right way. Eventually, the other family members, how you say it, not converted, but they begin to see Buddhism differently, and in, I would say, maybe 70 or 80% of the cases, their spouses would become more into Buddhism than their original spouse, not original spouse, than their spouse who first took the precepts. Yeah, it usually happens that way. It's very funny. Yeah. Okay. Then say in the gift of the last paragraph, it says, in this gift of the Dharma, the man talks about it talks about saying the right thing at the right time. So it's not just telling people what the Dharma is or showing people, but it's also understanding the source of their afflictions, or what is their what is the source of the afflictions, so that you can, it's like a doctor, you can prescribe the right medicine for them. That's why when you tell people who are very angry, you tell them, "Oh, you just need to be more patient," you just make them more upset. Because it doesn't work. People who have a problem with anger will all tell you that patience does not work. Why? Because you are fighting, it is heart with heart. You're not giving the antidote to a poison. It's like pouring water on a fire that's caused by oil. You just make things worse. So the antidote for anger is actually loving kindness. When you have loving kindness, anger does not even arise. So you don't even have need for patience because your anger does not arise. So that's what I mean when the Dharma has to be appropriate to the whatever the person is undergoing at the right time. So this actually reminds me of a story. There's a story called about this woman who became an arahant under the Buddha, but before that, she was known as Kisa Gotami. And there are two variations to the story. I'll just tell the more common one. She was not treated well by her in-laws because she was not able to bear a child, or specifically bear a son for the in-laws. And so she had a very miserable existence. But then one day, she was able to conceive and she gave birth to a baby boy. So that instantly elevated her status in the family and she was treated a lot better. But unfortunately, one day the boy died. And knowing what was in store for her, it is said that she was overcome with grief and she became mad. And she started running around the city where she was living, crying out for anyone who could bring her boy back to life. And then she had a thought. She said, if there's anyone who can bring my baby back, it would be the Buddha. So she went to see the Buddha. And most people, or rather myself, would probably think that the Buddha would talk to her about impermanence, or everyone dies, and etc. etc. But no, the Buddha didn't do that. What the Buddha did was, the Buddha actually agreed. He said, okay, I will help you, but you have to do one thing for me first. And she said, okay, what is it? So the Buddha said, okay, I need you to collect 100 mustard seeds for me, but you can only collect one single mustard seed from one house. So you need to go to 100 houses to collect mustard seed. So people here who cook, they know what a mustard seed is. It's like a little, it's usually black, very, very small. How small? I don't know, like a 1 millimeter. Yeah, very small mustard seed. And then the Buddha said, but you can only collect it from a house that no one has died in that house before. She said, okay. So she ran away, came to the first house and asked if they had mustard seeds. And mustard seeds in Indian cooking is a very common ingredient. So she would always get a yes response. Yes, we do have mustard seeds. And then the next question would be, okay, has anyone died in this house before? So this is a village or a town. It's like those old towns for a long time. Like I've seen photos of those old Chinese villages where multiple generations live in one house. So because of that, because it's a family home, eventually someone would have to die in that house. It's not like modern times where you walk into, there are new suburbs being built and houses are brand new. It's not like that at all. So she would always get a yes to her first question. Yes, we have mustard seeds and we can give you one. After all, it's just one mustard seed, like a grain of salt. But the answer to her second question was always no. Was always also yes. Yes, someone has died here before. So she ran running from house to house until she came to her own senses. She realized for herself. She said, oh, I'm not going to find a house where no one has died before. So then she went to the Buddha. And it was only then that the Buddha spoke the Dharma to her. Then she left home because at that time, she already knew there was nothing for her to go back to. And she left home, and after a while of practice, she became an arahant. She ended birth and death. But it was the Buddha's skillful way of teaching her. When the Buddha knew that when her mind was overcome with grief, that was not the right time to to tell her what she needed to hear. Okay, so there you go. All right. Next says, in the same way, the medicine Bhaisajya. Okay, why have I included the Sanskrit word here for Bhaisajya? Does anyone know? Please type into the chat box if you know, or unmute your mic. Why? Okay, it is because Medicine Master Buddha's name is Bhaisajya Guru. All right, so that's why it's there. All right, so the medicine is regulated for the sickness for which it is efficacious. So if someone breaks their leg, you don't give them, medicine for the stomach. You mend their leg instead. So there are people who are especially lustful, especially hateful, especially stupid, combining two of these tendencies or mixing all three. For the lustful, contemplation of the horrible is preached or taught. For the hateful, loving kindness. For the stupid, the profound codependent production of phenomena. For those who combine two of these tendencies, both of these practices are preached. For those who mix all three practices are preached. If one does not know the nature of the sickness and one as in the medicine, the sickness gets worse. Okay, that's why you need a good knowing advisor. So what is this? These are skillful means. Okay, skillful means you need someone who knows what's wrong with you, and sometimes the way they teach you doesn't make any sense to you because you don't even know the source of your afflictions. But to a good teacher, they know exactly what to do and what to say. But the process of transformation is the difficult one. Just like you can be given medicine, but the medicine can be very, very hard to take. It can be very, very bitter, right? Yeah. So the process of transformation is where you have to undergo the whole unpleasantness. Yeah. Okay. So those who believe in the existence of beings are taught that only the five aggregates exist, and that there is no Atman, which is the self or the thinking there's a self or soul in them. Those who deny the existence of beings are taught the renewing of the five skandhas serially, so that they do not fall into the wrong view of nihilism. Nihilism means after you die, there's nothing at all. To those who seek wealth, generosity is preached. To those who wish to be reborn among the gods, morality is preached. To those who are afflicted, the things of the gods are preached. So you notice I'm not going to explain every single connection between the affliction and the Dharma, because each one of these by itself is can take up the whole hour, right? This is just to demonstrate how the breadth of the Dharma and how different, you could say different Dharma doors are for different people. That's one way of looking at it. And this is where it gets interesting. It says, to unfortunate householders, the living home of monastics are preached. When it says unfortunate householders, I'm not sure why it says unfortunate householders, the living home of monastics. Usually it the act of living home is on one end, okay, and then on the other end are householders. So basically in the sutras, the convention is that eventually you want to build yourself to the point that you can become a monastic, especially in the Theravada side of things. That's the whole point. That's why they do the temporary ordination to plant blessings for themselves, to generate blessings, so that in future lives, one day, they too can become full-time monastics. It says, to lay people who love money, the fivefold discipline of the Upasaka is taught. This means the five precepts. To those, why, if you love money, you have to hold the precepts, because if not, then you can do unwholesome acts in your desire for money. So the precepts keep you safe. As to those who hate samsara, which is birth, which is continuously being reborn, the three seals of the Dharma, which are impermanence, non-self, and nirvana, are preached. Being based on the principles of the sutras, the teacher himself shows the meaning and the logic and adorns the gift of the Dharma with comparisons in order to preach or to teach or to show it or to demonstrate it to beings. Okay, what does this mean? It means that once you understand the principles, you can take the principle and apply it to specifics or to different situations without without diluting the principle. So this is how Buddhism has gone from country to country, from culture to culture, and he has adapted the traditions and the culture. Why? Because it has to speak to the people there, but the principles always remain the same. That's why you need a good knowing advisor, a good teacher who understands the principle, and then by applying the principle to different cultures, it takes on the flavor of the culture, but the teaching is always the same, it's always consistent. And there's a chapter in the Avatamsaka Sutra, don't remember, because I just remembered this now. It's about the Four Noble Truths. It's very interesting. And it's about how different worlds, different worlds in different Buddha lands, they have different words for the Four Noble Truths. They describe it differently. But when you read the chapter, you realize they're all talking about the same thing. They all describe the same thing. They all describe the Four Noble Truths, but it's different. So it's different, yet it's the same. Yeah. So that's being, the principles are the same, but the specifics are different. Okay. So next, you might be, you may not, but you might be asking, then how can we share the Dharma? Okay, I'm going to share a picture. This picture was taken at, I think it was maybe, was it the second or first Buddha root farm that we had in Malaysia? And you see how many people there. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I see at least 9, but there's maybe 10 to 12 people standing in the middle. What are they doing? They are waiting to request the Dharma. So usually requesting of the Dharma is done by 1 or 2 people, but during Buddha Road Farm, some of them were so excited. We encouraged them to request for Dharma that they all wanted to do it. So that's what you see on your screen. Another way to be generous with the Dharma, apart from requesting the Dharma, apart from asking questions, apart from being a good example of what a Buddhist is, one way is also to print sutras. And by donating to temples for the printing of sutras, you help spread the Dharma. Okay. Next, what do we have? Let me see, what's the time? Okay, we have time. At this point, Melinda says it's third Buddha root farm. Thanks, Melinda. Okay, at this point, do we have any questions anyone wants to bring up? Because the next few slides are along the same topic, but different subtopic. Anyone? Any questions? I hear crickets. No? Okay, anyway, I'm going to tell everyone again, because I don't remember if I said this. I remember saying this in the beginning. I'm going to start a project in the next few months. I'm going to investigate all the different sutras about the process of death and dying. It's going to talk about, I'm going to investigate about what we can do as Buddhists to prepare for it, what happens during the stage of dying and after the rebirth process, anything to do with death and dying. So if you have any questions that are related that you always wanted to know, it will be very helpful to me to know the questions that people have. Okay, you want to know now, you want to ask them now, you can as well. You can send it to me through WhatsApp, or you can type it into the chat box. Okay, so since we don't have any other questions for now, there's a passage from a text called The Perfection of Giving by Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. And he talks about the wisdom of generosity. How this is Bodhisattva wisdom, Bodhisattva logic about giving. And probably Ron asked a question last week about, for example, how Bodhisattvas are able to give, say, even their bodies, and what does that mean for normal people. I also have that. I'm not sure if we have enough time today, but let's see. Okay, what is wisdom of generosity, or like I mentioned last week, Bodhisattva logic of giving? So Nagarjuna uses the metaphor of a house on fire. He says generosity can be compared to appropriate actions when a house has caught fire. He says an intelligent person would clearly recognize the gravity of the situation and would hastily extricate his valuables before the fire reached him. Then, although the house might be burned to the ground, still his valuables would be preserved so that he might rebuild his residence. A person who enjoys giving is just like this. Okay, so it makes a distinction between the house. Okay, and I would give extra points to anyone who can tell me what the house represents. So he makes a clear distinction between the house and the valuables in the house. All right, so there's house and valuables. Why? Because if you can save your valuables from being burned, then you can always rebuild your house. Okay, as opposed to what? Okay, oh wait, not finished yet. It says because he is aware of the fragility of the body and of the impermanence of material wealth, he takes advantage of the opportunity to cultivate blessings. This is like removing one's possessions from the path of a fire. In a later life, one is still able to experience bliss. This is similar to that person's work of rebuilding his house. One experiences comfort as a result of those blessings. Okay, so the house is the body and material wealth. And the valuables in the house represents your blessings. Okay, all right. So let's move on. It says so this is the contrast. Okay, it says the foolish and deluded person is concerned only with cherishing his house and so rushes about trying to save it instead of saving his valuables. You can see this in most people. There's a whole industry, multi-billion industry that caters to people trying to maintain their looks or to improve their looks or to disguise their looks so they look better, like makeup and all that. Okay, I shouldn't use the word disguise, but to complement their features. Okay. It's not saying anything bad. It's just saying that from the perspective of the Dharma, there's another way to look at things. So while there is the certain expectations of society, for example, in your work, there are a lot of people who are required to look presentable in their work. So that's a totally different thing. Okay. What he's pointing out here in terms of foolish and deluded people are people who hang on to youth, to their body, because they derive happiness from their body. So he's pointing out that, but your body is not permanent. Okay, he's going to give up one day. So he says people like that. He says he proceeds madly and foolishly and losing touch with common sense, fails to recognize the intensity of the blaze. So you're so caught up in what's going on that you don't pay attention to that the fire is going to fully consume because of the intensity, fully consume the house because of the intensity of the fire. In the fierce wind and towering flames, even the earth and rocks are scorched. In a brief interval, everything is utterly destroyed. Not only is the house not safe, but the wealth and valuables are all lost as well. To the end of his life, he is tormented by hunger, cold, anguish, and suffering. Miserly people who are stingy, are just like this. They do not realize that one's physical existence is impermanent, that one cannot guarantee even another moment of life. Nonetheless, they dedicate themselves to accumulating possessions which they protect and treasure. Death arises unexpectedly, and then they suddenly pass away. One's physical form is of the same class with earth and wood. One's wealth, the same as withered goods, is entirely cast aside. So it means that no matter how much wealth you accumulate, you can't take any of it with you. Okay? What can you take with you? Well, depends on how you use your wealth. But people who are selfish and accumulate wealth only for themselves and not for others, at the end, that just like the body, the wealth is just going to be there, either be distributed to your family or goes to the government or whatever it is, get lost if you bury it. Not a single coin is going to go with you. Okay. Says, as one turns about in the wheel of birth and death, going and coming in the five destinies, there are no relatives upon one who can rely. There is only generosity and its fruits, meaning what you do with the wealth that you have when you're still alive. Whether one is born in the heavens or among men, whenever one gains a pure result, it comes forth as a result of giving. Even among elephants, horses, and other animals, they are being given fine shelter, and nourishment is also something they gain as a result of giving. That's why you see differences in the way animals are treated. Some animals are treated really well. Some animals have a horrible existence, and it can be traced back to their acts of giving before in their previous existences. Then he says, the qualities gained on account of giving are wealth, nobility, and bliss. Those who uphold the moral precepts succeed in being reborn in the heavens. Through dhyana and wisdom, one's mind becomes pure and devoid of defiled attachment. Thus one gains the path of nirvana. The blessings gained as a result of giving constitute the provisions on that road to nirvana. So that's why if you look at the text for lay people, the sutras that the Buddha taught to lay people, the main topic is always generosity, but not just lay people as well. In fact, if you are a bodhisattva, the first practice that you perfect as a real bodhisattva, as a maha bodhisattva, is actually the perfection of giving. So when you're on the first ground of a bodhisattva, there are 10 grounds in total. On the first ground, the practice that you fully master is the practice of giving or generosity. Okay, and I have slides for that too. All right. So it says, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva concludes by saying, when one brings to mind giving, he experiences delight. On account of delight, he develops unity of mind. With unity of mind means concentration. With unity of mind, he contemplates birth and death and impermanence. That means wisdom. Because he contemplates birth, death, and impermanence, he is able to realize the path. So this formula, this is a short formula, but it has appeared many times. Usually it talks about precepts. It starts with precepts, and then by holding the precepts, you have no shame or remorse, and then your mind becomes concentrated. And then when your mind no shame or remorse, then your body becomes very pliant, very soft. You don't hold tension in your body. Then when you sit for long periods of time, your body doesn't fight against you, and then your mind can become concentrated, and then you can get wisdom. So that's usually the formula here, and this is one variation of the formula. Okay, so we still have some time, so I'm going to go to the next few slides. Yes, any question, anyone? No? Okay, if not, and I'm going to mute your microphone.
Dharma Master,
Oh, yes.
what are the 3 clusters of precepts?
3 classes of precepts.
As stated in the Medicine Master Sutra. I think it's vow, I cannot remember which vow, but if a person were to break the 3 classes of precepts, but if he chants the Medicine Master Buddha's name, then he can regain his purity.
Okay, hold on. Let me look. Okay, this is the 5th great vow. It said, I vow that in a future life, when I attain Bodhi, I shall enable limitless and boundless number of sentient beings who cultivate Brahma conduct or pure conduct within my Dharma to perfectly uphold the 3 classes of precepts without any violation. Okay, that's a very good question. Hold on, let me see.
Yes. That is the vow that the 3 classes of precepts that I'm asking. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So according to Shufu's commentary, he says the 3 classes of pure precepts mean, okay, number 1, the precepts for gathering in living beings. All right. That's number 1, the precepts for gathering in living beings. Number 2, the precepts comprise of wholesome dharmas. Number 3, the precepts comprise of the rules of discipline and deportment. So number 3 is the precepts that we are more used to when we use the word precepts. So 3 is comprised of the rules of deportment and discipline. That is what, when people say precepts, that's what is commonly referred to. Whereas the other 2, the precepts for gathering in living beings, is how you use your conduct, your dharma, to fulfill your vows that you have made in order to become a Buddha. Okay, now it's me talking, it's not Shufu, because let me see, I will have to read what Shufu has to say, because offhand I wouldn't know what these 3 classes of precepts are. So number 1, the precepts for gathering in living beings is your conduct on the Bodhisattva path as you are trying to save living beings. Okay, so that's number 1. For example, let me see. The 5th is so for example, you hold the Bodhisattva precept, and there's a precept that says you should not pass any alcoholic drinks to another person. Then you're caught in a difficult situation where you're at a formal dinner or whatever it is, and you don't know whether someone says, can you please pass me the glass of wine or something like that. You want to hold the precepts, but then you realize that your understanding of the precepts is not good enough for you to know what to do in that particular situation. So you're in doubt. So that's what it means when you can't hold the precepts for gathering in living beings. That's one just example that comes to mind. And then the precepts comprise of wholesome dharmas. Let me see what Shufu says. Shufu says wholesome dharmas refers to innumerably many kinds of dharmas. The precepts comprise of wholesome dharmas tell us to do no evil and practice all good. There you go. Don't ask me to explain because I don't really know how to expand on that. Then Shufu says, okay, let me see. Shufu says the precepts for gathering in living beings encompass all living beings. One wants to take all living beings across to Buddhahood. Okay, so there you go. So the first one, the precepts for gathering in living beings, is you want to save living beings, to take them across to Buddhahood. The second one, comprised of wholesome dharmas, means doing everything that's good. Don't do anything that's does not benefit other people. That's one way of seeing it. And the third one is precepts as we are more, in the term of as we are more used to. Okay, that means the 5 precepts, the 8 precepts, the bhikshu, bhikshuni precepts, the bodhisattva precepts. That's what it means. Okay, is that helpful? If not, you can reread this again in the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, the one with Shufu's commentaries. Okay. And with that, we have run out of time. Okay. So then what we'll do next week is we are going to look at how a bodhisattva on the first ground does their perfection of giving. And then to answer Ron's question from last week, which is also related to this whole topic, there's something called the 3 levels of giving. And the 3 levels of giving basically talks about giving based on your ability. And the 3rd level of giving is the ultimate, where even you can give away your body. You don't worry about your body, but it's a very high level of giving that only people who have attained a certain level of cultivation or practice can achieve. So there are 3 levels of giving, and we will explore that next week. Okay, so anyone else, anything you want to share or anything you want to ask? Yes? No? Oh, okay, hold on. Let me see. I just stopped sharing my screen. I'm sorry. I was trying to change to something else. Okay, hold on. Yes. So today in the WhatsApp group, I said that it is Medicine Master Buddha's birthday. And if you attend today, you get a gift. So there you go, the gift of Dharma. So not only you get a gift of Dharma, but you also get to learn about giving Dharma as well. Okay. Okay, let's do dedication of merit. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Also, should we hold another Q&A session? If people want to have another Q&A, we can either have a full Q&A or we can combine half lecture, half Q&A, depending on how many questions. But if you think you want to have a Q&A, then we can discuss it in the WhatsApp group. Okay? All right. Amitabha everyone. I'll see you next week.